Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. Hope you're doing well. For those of you who missed it, last video I decided to learn all I could about headshots in Dark Souls 1, which not only led to some super cool discoveries, but also inevitably sent me down a few rabbit holes. Rabbit holes like how enemies aggro, which is actually way more complicated than it has any right to be. And after the algorithm realized I was following a specific inquiry, it actually did its job for once and sent me a video I didn't know I wanted to watch. Blue Thunder Soul's video on Dark Souls 3, where Blue attempted to make it through the entire game without aggroing enemies. Go watch that if you haven't already. It's a pretty wild ride. But it got me thinking. With Illusory Wall's two newest videos about DS1's aggro mechanics now bringing light to how enemies actually work, could you actually stealth your way through Dark Souls 1? No. No, huh? You can't even make it out of the asylum. It gets that bad that quickly. However, because the biggest threat to my well-being is indeed myself, this didn't stop me. You may not be able to clear the tutorial without aggroing an enemy, but sing it with me. The tutorial doesn't count. And because no one else has attempted it, as far as I can tell, today we're gonna find out. Exactly how far can you get in Dark Souls 1 without aggroing enemies? Alright, so before we get started, let's discuss the rules. The first rule is that we must not aggro any enemies. And I immediately have to explain what I mean by this, because in Dark Souls there are several states that enemies can be in. They can completely ignore you, like the first few hollows in the Asylum do. They can be aware of you, but not actively hostile, yet. They can patrol areas, but not be aware of your presence. And they can be actively, aggressively hostile. And this state right here is the one we want to avoid. All other states will not count towards losing stealth. Now, that might ruffle a few feathers for the more semantic viewers out there. And originally, I did test out what it would be like if we attempted to clear the game without enemies ever even noticing me. But, yeah, you don't even make it out of Firelink Shrine if you do that. So yeah, the only state for enemies that counts as aggroed is the actively hostile state. So this state right here, still okay. But now that he's actively trying to eat my face, not allowed. Got it? Good. Rule number 2 is that if an enemy aggroes onto my person, then we have to reset to the nearest bonfire. Doesn't matter how you do it, just so long as progress is reset. Rule number 3 is that bosses don't count, so we get to fight them like normal, but rule number 3.5 is that mobs inside of a boss fight do count. So look forward to that little hiccup. Rule 4 is that no glitches are allowed, and the final rule is that this is a community challenge. Yeah, that's right, caught you sleeping, didn't I? For anyone brave enough to give this run a go, I hereby challenge you to get further than I did in this run. I love seeing a game push to its limits, and I'm pretty confident that I got as far as physically possible when playing by these rules. So, if anyone has found a way to reach a boss that I didn't by the end of the run, please send me a DM on Discord. It'll be first come, first serve, but if you've got video proof of how you did it, and it's replicable, I'll gift you a game of your choice on Steam. A game that you can then play on your very own PC. Unless you have a Steam Cube, but if you have one of those, you're from the future. Is it nice? I hope it's nice. And if you're in the market for a new PC, then consider today's sponsor, Apex Gaming PCs. Need to upgrade your computer, but less than comfortable with your mechanical skills? Not a problem. For those of you who are mechanically uninclined, Apex Gaming offers pre-built PCs for just such the occasion. They have several tiers of computers to meet your needs, ranging from good enough to the only food I'm eating this month is digital. Tiers like the Hollow, Bear, the Massive Souls, Hello, and the Gaping Dragon. And if none of those fit your needs, you can always make a customized build, picking out everything you want while resting easy, knowing that the parts you pick will all be compatible with one another. So if a pre-built PC sounds good to you, use my code BACKLOGS for a 3% discount on your entire order. What, can I help you? Oh God. And with the gauntlet thrown down, let's get this party started. The first important step is creating a good name, and the second is picking the right class. And the only correct answer is the Hunter class. You'll see why in a moment. As for our starting gift, I was stuck between two options, the Black Firebombs and the Master Key. Personally, I went with the Master Key for the ability to sequence break the game a bit, but Black Firebombs have their own use if you know how to use them. Now, for those of you who are thinking that they can just beat me right out of the gate by clearing the tutorial, I just want to show you why that's not possible. The first couple of hollows don't even acknowledge your existence, so they're okay, and the Asylum Demon is obviously a boss, so even though it notices us, it doesn't count. However, it's this asshole right here that immediately locks the Tutorial Asylum out of the run. If you so much as step around the corner here, that's it. He's locked down and shooting at you. No chance of any kind of workaround. I'm not sure if this is a trigger in the code, or if his hearing and eye range is just that far, but either way, there's no way around it. The same is true of the hollow that pushes the boulder up the stairs. The only way you could kill it without it aggroing is with the black firebomb gift, but then you'll have to find a way to kill the 3 hollows here at the secondary weapon location without them noticing you. And trust me, I dabbled with this a bit, and it might be impossible here too, even if you manage to lob firebombs around the corner. Sorry sports fans, but if you want to beat the patience elemental, you'll need to play a bit farther than you hoped. Because if you haven't checked the timestamp, we've got a ways to go before I run out of ideas. Now then, with the run officially started, it's time to explore our options. We have 3 directions to run: up the hill towards the Undead Burg, into the graveyard, or down into New Londo and the Valley of Drakes, if you took the Master Key. But first things first, we need to develop as many ranged attacks as possible. We have our short bow and 30 arrows from picking the Hunter class. These 6 firebombs are just lying around waiting for us to use them, and if we make our way down into New Londo, we can visit the blacksmith here for a sorcerer's staff and the soul arrow spell. And don't worry, the hollows down here don't care about you at all, which means we can actually collect the S-Stock as well. Will we use it? Probably not, but considering the enemies aggro onto you after a single hit, it's in our best interest to collect harder and harder hitting weapons as they appear, because if you can one-shot an enemy before it aggroes to you, that's souls in your pocket and progress made. So we'll need as many one-shot options as we can create. Now for those of you worried about how to afford the staff and sorcery, good news. The hollows down here drop 20 souls each, and the only way to aggro them is to fail to one-shot them. They don't even aggro if you murder their buddies. This means at the start of the run, you have an unlimited supply of souls, and all it costs you is your time. Which brings us to optional rule number 6. Grinding is dumb, cheating is based. So long as you can prove that an item is infinitely farmable, I see nothing wrong with giving yourself that item via cheat engine. Because our time on this earth is precious. Don't waste it proving you can do the same monotonous task over and over again. And with a sorcerer's staff, soul arrow, and heavy soul arrow added to our equip load, it's time to make some progress. My first stop is the Undead Burg, because without access to a merchant, we only have 30 arrows and 6 firebombs to our name, and that simply won't do. Which means that until then, we're going to do our best to use our soul arrows, because they recharge whenever we sit down at a bonfire. A task that immediately goes up in smoke when the sword hollow up the cliffside can see us from outside of our lock-on range. This is fine. Everything is fine. Alright, didn't want to have to do this, but it looks like we're going to have to play perfectly. 1 soul arrow for the hollow down here, and a headshot for our overexcited friend up top. Putting that headshot video experience to work. The armored hollow at the foot of the hill can be killed with a soul arrow, which leaves 3 more hollows up top. But we're nice and far away, so surely we can... Oh, okay. That's fine, I guess. I knew our friend up there had some good eyes since he normally throws bombs at you when you're down here, but I guess I didn't realize exactly how wild his range actually is. Which means we're gonna have to spend an arrow to clear him too. Thank God for save states. We might need every arrow in our arsenal before we even reach the merchant. If memory serves, the hollow on the aqueduct has a short aggro range, which means we just need to worry about the axe hollow. A bit tricky to see him from here, but I guess that isn't true when you've got the high ground, huh? Welcome to what this run looks like for the next several hours. Taking a few baby steps, checking to see if you can hit the target, taking more baby steps, then watching in agony as they decide you've crossed an invisible line and it's time for them to show you what's what. This is about as close as I can get before he aggroes, which means no lock-on and no ability to shoot him with an arrow. But we've got a failsafe. Old reliable. Firebombs. Let me just line up the shot here. There we are. And with the grace of the firebomb goddess, let loose the dogs of war. It's just that easy. The last hollow just watches in horror as we send a soul arrow his way, and that's Firelink Shrine clear. There is the rat inside the aqueduct, but it's too busy chowing down on undead jerky to notice us, even with us stepping in the water. So a soul arrow is enough to clear that threat as well, which means it's time to enter the Undead Burg proper. If we use our staff as a periscope, we can launch a soul arrow or 2 downrange, taking care of the initial hollows guarding the stairs, but just like that last firebomb hollow, this one also has been eating his carrots. It doesn't take much either. If he so much as thinks he sees you, he aggroes. And unfortunately, even when casting from our right hand, I can't curve soul arrow around the corner. But don't worry, I've got another skill up my sleeve. Distractions. It doesn't work on every enemy, unfortunately, but some enemies will turn towards sound, and while they're investigating what surely must have been the wind, we can sneak up on them and get the kill. Turns out Dark Souls was a stealth game this entire time. Who knew? But now for some bullshit. Did you know this hollow down here aggroes if he sees you? Cause I sure didn't. I was hoping we could sneak attack him from above, but this man has eyes both on the top and back of his head. But this was easily remedied by casting a soul arrow to his left, then quietly sneaking to the ledge and sending another arrow his way. But if you liked that bullshittery, you're gonna love this one. Yep, some enemies only spawn in when you cross certain load points. Luckily, he's just as curious about the blue blast that just flew past him as his brethren. which means he goes down without an issue and we can keep pushing forward into the berg. We witness what is most certainly a DUI in the making as the red dragon flies past us, paying us zero mind, then immediately gets stuck again. See that hollow in the back left? Eyes of a hawk, apparently, which means it's time to commit some petty vandalism and destroy a barricade to distract him. And everyone else in the area too, I guess, but that one particular hollow is the only one I'm worried about at the moment. After that, it's a simple matter of systematically headshotting every single enemy in the area. Some of them are a bit far away, which gives me some anxiety over whether I'll actually be able to one-shot them due to the fact that arrow damage decreases when it goes past its maximum range, but so far it seems to be holding. And with the spear hollows taken care of, that's the last of the enemies between me and the undead merchant, which means we can now restock a number of our tools. I got a little nervous that breaking the boxes on the stairs would wake the neighbors, but it looks like we're okay on that front. And our good buddy Charles back there is content to just hang out so long as we don't walk too close to him. Good stuff, all the way around. So what exactly did we unlock? Unlimited firebombs for one, and as many throwing knives as we can hold. Useless for damage, but it might be a good distraction option in a pinch. The same is true of the Lloyd's talismans. I don't know if enemies turn towards them when they hit the ground, but better to have them than not. We buy up the residence key for a very important reason that we'll cover later, then replenish our stock of arrows. We also have access to large arrows and wooden arrows, as well as standard bolts, heavy bolts, and wooden bolts. Oh, and a whole slew of melee weapons. Probably not useful in the long run, but we buy them anyway. Better safe than sorry. So, let's talk arrows. The 3 arrow types are all slightly unique. Wooden arrows do less damage, but are cheaper than the rest. Large arrows do more damage, but can't reach as far before their damage drop off. And standard arrows are the middle-of-the-road option. Funnily enough, despite the wooden arrow description stating that they don't fly very far, they allegedly have the same drop-off distance as standard arrows. But considering they have less damage and we have an unlimited supply, best not to risk it and just stick with standard arrows. As for the bolts, they're more or less the same as the arrows when it comes to range and damage, but you can't aim a crossbow in Dark Souls 1, despite the multitude of mistaken comments I received telling me that you can. You're all thinking of Dark Souls 2 and 3. I promise you that two-handing a crossbow in Dark Souls 1 does not give you an aiming reticle. And even if it did, the crossbows don't scale with stats, which means the bow will outperform it in damage pretty much immediately. But now for something I completely forgot to consider. If we rest at the bonfire, can we even escape the room? Killing the crossbow man is easy enough, but thanks to Dark Souls' fucky-wucky hitboxes, hitting this swordsman is harder than it should be. Oh, right. He can't see me. Silly me. Unfortunately though, his death makes this hollow turn around, which in turn makes it a problem for me. Alright, let's try this again. Thank you, Dark Souls. Okay, once more with feeling. Shoot the swordsman in the head, fade back into the shadows, and after waiting a few seconds, the hollows down below will lose interest and return to their original positions, which means they're primed for headshots. Unless killing one of them aggroes the other one for some reason. Doesn't matter which order you kill them in either. Their partner's death turns them around just enough that they notice us. But as anyone who knows me will tell you, I'm a fool. Because if you kill the first 2 hollows and then let the bottom floor hollows return to their resting positions, you can completely ignore them and move on with your life. There's 3 firebomb hollows up above, and after shooting one in the face, I can happily confirm that it's the kill that makes the noise, not the bowstring. And after shooting the second firebomb hollow, followed immediately by the third, we can safely move on. First up is the axe hollow at the end of the bridge. A straightforward shot, nice and easy. The hollow that likes to surprise you in the doorway can also be shot from range, which means we've only got one more axe hollow to worry about. And, so long as we're quiet about it, we can get just the right angle to take the shot. Easy peasy, lemon feels queasy. And after confirming again that the lower level hollows don't care about me, we're on to the next brick wall. And it's this sumbitch right here. Yes, hello, I see you too. Now in my original test of this theory, I was stuck here forever. There's invisible hitboxes on the windows, so you can't just shoot him, which led to almost an hour of trying to distract him with arrows so I could sneak past him. Yeah, no, turns out I wasted my time. If you just hug the far wall and tiptoe past him, he can't see you. That's it. That's all it takes. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the right ones, but sometimes they're not. We've got another firebomb hollow up above, and he aggroes almost as soon as you poke your head above the steps. God, I wish I had this man's eyes. I can't see past my own eyelids most days. But unfortunately for him and his buddies, they also have my attention span. And after putting an arrow firmly in the gutter, we can quickly headshot the firebomb hollow. Then it's just a matter of going from buddy to buddy as they try to comprehend what's happening. Oh, duh. Hey, you aggroed? Probably should have been. I was a bit nervous about the next section, since Illusory Walls video went into great detail about how the crossbow hollow up ahead notices you as soon as you step in front of it, but it turns out that the trigger doesn't help him at all if you just shoot him in the back of the head before he can use it. The next few hollows are sitting ducks, minus this spear hollow here. He actually notices you when you try to line up a shot. And while I'm sure I could have opened the house next door and shot him from the backyard, why do that when we can arc a firebomb over this wall and kill him with style? That said, we do need to go to the backyard next door, because otherwise there's no way to get an angle on Mr. Barrel over here. Hey buddy, have a mouthful. There you go. And while we absolutely could shoot the Black Knight in the back, there's no way in hell that we have enough damage to one-shot him right now. And melee weapons are unfortunately out of the question as well, since enemies technically aggro onto us right before we can pull off a backstab. Which means it's up to the Taurus Demon we go. Thankfully, the Titanite Lizard is stuck in a barrel, so as long as we ignore it, we don't have to worry about its aggro range. But now for the newest problem, the 2 crossbowmen in the Taurus Demon arena. They don't notice you when you step in, but wander a bit too far, and they'll aggro immediately. What to do? Welcome to the next hour or so of my life. It took some heavy experimenting, but eventually, I realized that you can shoot the nearby crenellations to distract them, which lets you climb the ladder without them noticing you. For all of 2 seconds anyway. After that, I just couldn't seem to get far enough behind them to escape their line of sight, which means we've got 2 seconds max to kill both of them without them noticing us. And I think I have just the solution. Cut the camera. Cut the camera. Okay, well, maybe not, but we've learned some valuable information. Firstly, we now know that firebombs do enough damage to one-shot the crossbowmen. We also now know that shooting them also kills them, but they aren't distracted long enough for me to pull off the double kill. But I believe in us. We can do this. And after several resets, and minutes upon minutes of fine-tuning aiming angles and timing, we've got it. Well, almost. We've proven that they're close enough together to be killed in a single firebomb, but the timing still isn't quite right. We're getting closer though. Consistency is key here, as well as a healthy amount of patience. We just need to be a little bit faster. And then, I see it. If I don't aim with my bow beforehand, that should give me just enough time to throw a firebomb before they turn around. And just like that, the hour I've spent practicing throwing a bomb in the same location over and over again finally pays off. Now that's a confirmed stealth kill if I've ever seen one. And as a reward, the game reminds me that we could be even stronger than we are right now, because the hollows sometimes drop Titanite shards. Now, we don't need it just yet, but as stated before in rule number 6, once we prove that an item is infinitely farmable, we can spawn in an infinite amount of them. And since we have access to a blacksmith down in New Londo, this means that any weapon we own can now be upgraded to +5. You'll love to see it. And with Taurus Demon dead, it's time to move on to the Undead Parish. But first, a bit of speculation. The Dragon Bridge. Essentially how it works is if you so much as step on the first few bricks, the dragon appears and torches the whole thing. However, this trigger event strikes me as something more akin to when it landed on the Undead Burg. It's just the dragon being the dragon, not it being aggroed. So, with that in mind, I don't think it breaks the rules to let the dragon appear on the bridge. And with the hollows on the bridge looking even more like jerky than they did before, we can scurry across the bridge and unlock the ladder shortcut. Let me just confirm that the dragon doesn't aggro when I get to this point, and we're good. But with the dragon arrived, we are locked into a single direction. Going upwards would definitely aggro the dragon as soon as we went up the stairs. So, under the bridge we go. And with the spearman taken care of, and the hollow soldier easily dispatched from behind, we have our next brick wall. The rat den. Well, that didn't work. Alright, I know for a fact we can kill the rats with our bow, so it's just a matter of getting a bit closer to make sure we don't lose too much arrow damage before we strike. And there's one, and there's two. But I've died here enough times to know that there's a third rat hiding around the corner. Psst, 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 psst. Come here, little buddy, where you at? Ah, there you are. So this rat is a bit unique. Rather than using sight, it appears to be a trigger enemy, where it turns around after you step over the threshold into the room. So even though I can distract it with an arrow, it always seems to turn around as soon as I round the corner, making any kill I get not clean enough for my standards. Or maybe it can just see me out of the corner of its eye, I don't know. Combine that with the fact that this corner has the worst hitbox I've ever seen, and we're struggling a bit here. But behold, the solution. We shoot an arrow off to the side to distract the rat, helping expose it a bit more, and with our staff in our left hand, we have just enough wiggle room to get a soul arrow around the bend. Rat lair complete. Which means we are officially, undeniably, in the Undead Parish. Glorious day! Kaloo Kalay! And now for something even more terrible. This absolute gauntlet of a room. Interestingly, the enemies here are very susceptible to distractions, and some of them will even wander over to the noise to investigate. So that's helpful. What's not helpful is this spearman just sitting here, waiting to ruin my attempt. Because I have a sneaking suspicion that thwacking enemies with arrows from outside of my maximum range is going to become a constant thing, I took a detour and went back to New Londo to upgrade my bow to +5, then took another crack at the pig room. And hey, would you look at that? We can thin the ranks a bit. Well, I mean, a little. The crossbows and other enemies are all a bit too far, but 2 kills is progress at least. And after some careful aiming and tiptoeing, I can even get rid of that pesky spearman with a well-placed firebomb. And so long as you creep along the edge of the wall, you can make your way into the room and get just close enough to take out the crossbows. Very satisfying stuff. Only a few more enemies to go. There's a spearman up at the top of the stairs that sees you the instant you poke your head up, but if you use a firebomb to distract him, you can just pull off the ranged version of a backstab and move on with your day. 2 more to go. First up is the Gate Runner Hollow, who is conveniently impossible to hit with a headshot. But with the power of math and angles, that's not an issue. And with all the hollows removed from the room, we can grab a new and very important item for the run, the Alluring Skulls. Now we could use them on the pig and lure it into the fire to kill it, but considering we can actually sneak past it entirely, and because we have no way to replenish this very valuable item just yet, I think we'll leave it be. And with that room passed, we've gotten the next critical item on our journey, the basement key. Why are all the super important items I need keys? But I'm still not ready to reveal the importance of those items just yet, so for now, let's just creep on past the Boulder Knight, who is easily dispatched from behind with a soul arrow, snipe the 3 hollows who defend the outside of the church with minimal difficulty, then giddily make our way down to Andre the Blacksmith, who has all sorts of new toys for us to play with. Spoiler alert, none of it is helpful, not even a little bit. The Titanite shards are nice, but all those melee weapons don't really help me since I can't actually sneak up on enemies without them noticing me. Yet. Speaking of sneaking, how much damage can we do to the Baronque Knight? Alright, hear me out. What if we almost tripled that damage? That's better, much better, let's go. Follow that up with a clean headshot on the Channeler, and we're looking pretty good. Now, the Rapier Boulder Knights do have a bit too much health for our +5 short bow, even with a headshot, but that's nothing a heavy soul arrow can't fix. However, everyone who's played this game already knows the hell we're about to step into. See that room there? Full of Dreglings. And because Dark Souls developers didn't account for the projectiles leaving the bow at an odd angle when you fire it, trying to fire an arrow just right through those windows is a real pain in that Dregling's right arm. I kid you not, this particular portion was deceptively difficult. Just arrow after arrow stuck in the most random places. Fuck these hitboxes, I'm telling you. But after a lot of experimentation, we're finally getting somewhere. And you can't get too close either. Step a few feet away from the entrance and the Dreglings will smell your cowardice. But don't worry, huck a firebomb or 30 and you'll eventually figure out how to curve the bomb around the corner and kill the one hiding there. Oh, and that one behind him that's currently debating whether or not he witnessed a murder, let's make sure he doesn't put 2 and 2 together. We've got another Dregling hiding way off in the back there, which we can get with a left-handed soul arrow if you use your bow to get the angle down first. And there's one more in the far corner, but he's so shell-shocked that we can just put him out of his misery. But don't be fooled, we're not out of this mess just yet. There's another Dregling waiting just around the doorway before the ladder, 2 Dreglings in the other room, who we can shoot with an arrow and right-handed soul arrow, respectively, and one final Dregling just before the... Thank you, Dark Souls. One final Dregling just before the ladder that we can kill with an arced firebomb. Which means that we somehow, against all expectations, have made it to the gargoyles. I'll be honest, when I was plotting out the route to this run, I didn't think we would get this far. Like, don't get me wrong, I thought I might be able to get pretty far down a particular path we haven't even explored yet, and I had some contingency plans in case things started to fall apart. But making it to the gargoyles was not on my bingo card. But with the power of easy mode, aka magic missile, that's the gargoyles dead and the first bell rung. Just think. All the players who heard me ring that bell have no idea that I did it without aggroing any enemies. If that kind of silent accomplishment is happening on my end, imagine what the other players must be doing. Oh. Yeah, that's cool, I guess. Is that supposed to be hard, or? But there's no time to throw shade today. We've got a new route to follow. If we make our way back around to the front of the Red Dragon Bridge, we can finally use our critical items. The first being the basement key, which lets us head down into the lower Undead Burg. Where, to my dismay, we now have to deal with the Undead Doggos. But don't panic. They're not aggroed, they're just patrolling. Trust me, if it was aggroed, you would know. Taking care not to step too close to the stairs and carefully aiming and timing our throw, the closest doggo can be annihilated with a lobbed firebomb, and so long as you hide around the corner until the time is right, you can shoot the second patrolling dog in the back like the hero that you are. Look at you go. And once you've found a way to remove the first 2 dogs, the third one is actually the easiest, since it doesn't patrol and is consistently in the same spot. And with that done, it's time for the final step in my plan to come to fruition. Remember how we bought the residence key even though we have a master key? Here's why. Griggs the Sorcerer. Despite being a terrible wizard who can't even cast Knock, he'll teach you what little he knows back at Firelink so long as you have 10 intelligence. Which means we now have access to more casts of Soul Arrow and Heavy Soul Arrow, Great Soul Arrow, Fall Control, Great Heavy Soul Arrow, and Oral Decoy. We also have access to 2 very important rings, the Bellowing Dragoncrest ring and the Lingering Dragoncrest ring. The Soul Arrows are simple enough to explain. More casts and more damage. Good stuff. And the rings are pretty self-explanatory too. One boosts your magic damage even higher, and the other makes any spell effects last a little bit longer. As for Fall Control, it makes it so that you don't take damage when you fall off of cliffs, and it allegedly also makes your fall a bit quieter when you land. Could be useful for finding some less than conventional pathing. But Oral Decoy. This thing is going to change the game for us. Look at this description. It's almost like the game devs knew the player base was going to do something like this. When you cast Oral Decoy, it creates a floating sphere of laughter. luring in nearby enemies and making them aggressively attack the sphere in a surge of gamer rage. Now, if they reach the sphere, they'll destroy it, and once the sphere is destroyed, they'll re-aggro onto you if you're within range. But with some clever placement, you might be able to convince a few enemies that the cackling sphere is worth destroying no matter the cost. Oh yeah, we're gonna have fun with this one. But first, we need to get the final critical item for our build. An item I haven't mentioned up until now. And the only way to get it is to convince Griggs to give it to us. Now, we don't have enough firepower to one-shot Griggs ourselves, and obviously if he aggroes, we lose the challenge. But we can convince him to look over Firelink Shrine's cliff a little too closely. And after save quitting and reloading the game, Griggs gives up his hidden stash of goodies, the Hush Sorcery and the Slumbering Dragoncrest Ring. Essentially the same effect in either ring or spell form, these items make it so that you make zero noise. Do you realize what this means? This means that we can wear whatever armor we want to wear. This means we can actually move at a normal speed or even run if we want to. This means that we can walk in water without alerting everyone in a 6-mile radius of where we are. I mean, it doesn't help us with enemies that get alerted via triggers, but come on, that's a huge quality of life improvement. And with this new skill added to our arsenal, we can attempt to clear the Undead Asylum. God, what I would have given for the hidden body spell. Luckily, we can still kill all 4 of these hollows from long range, but this run would be much easier if we didn't have to worry about an enemy's visual aggro either. But beggars can't be choosers. We just have to work with the tools we have available to us. Which brings us to the Black Knights. Unfortunately, the one guarding the doll is out of spellcasting range, which means both damage and distraction spells are out, and it doesn't react to arrows being fired next to its head either, so we can't sneak up on it. And while it's a nice thought, no, our +5 shortbow doesn't have enough oomph to kill one. And even if we had managed to sneak up to it, we just don't have the stopping power to one-shot them. Sad day. But hey, at least we can prove that firebombs would have worked against the iron ball draggling from earlier. That's cool, I guess. But even if we did pick the black firebombs as our starting gift, it doesn't look like we would have gotten very far afterwards. Not that that ring back there would have helped me much anyway, since moving faster in water is only important if you're under attack. Which just leaves the boss. And with the stray demon killed, that's another milestone crossed off our list. You know, if there's one thing I took away from the Undead Asylum, it's that we need some more damage. And I think I know where to get some. The only problem is that a certain rock is blocking my path. Despite his very thick helmet, my man Havel has some great eyesight. Guy can see everything in front of him for miles. But it's not an instant aggro. Quickly hide behind the wall after throwing an alluring skull, and Havel doesn't feel the need to investigate the stairs. And since we have 4 alluring skulls to work with, we just might be able to lead him on a merry chase around the room, hopefully turning him just far enough around that we can sneak past him and get out the door. And for a second, I think I have it. Everything is looking good, Havel is turned around, and I don't throw the skull far enough. And Havel realizes that alluring skulls don't just appear out of nowhere. Damn, so close. But that's when it hits me. Just like oral decoy, alluring skulls are best when thrown at walls, since the enemies can't reach them, and therefore they don't despawn until their natural time limits. Which means 2 well-placed alluring skulls hucked against the walls of Havel's tower are just enough to keep him occupied, letting me open the door and sneak my way out into Darkroot Basin. And now the moment of truth. Can the Hydra smell me? Okay, I think we're good. After watching Illusory Wall's latest video about enemy smell distance, it's clear to me that certain parts of this game are just gonna be impossible. And with enemies like the Hydra, we're just out of luck. It has a smell distance of 100 meters. That means that even with my Slumbering Dragoncrest ring and a way to turn invisible, we still can't get within 100 meters of it without aggroing it. Which also means that we can't kill it. And in turn, can't spawn in Dusk of Ulasil, which means that both the hidden body spell and the DLC are simply no-goes. But you know what isn't a no-go? The longbow. Ooh, and 16 feather arrows. That's cool, I guess. As you can see here, the feather arrows add an additional 5 units to our range, which will be nice if we can get our hands on more later. But the real benefit is the longbow's increase in range, which, oh, what the fuck? Seriously? The longbow has the same range as the shortbow, how do you even, well, that's a bummer. We still get a decent boost in our damage, so it wasn't a complete waste of time, but I really thought it would increase our range too. In other news, we can't get any further into Deeproot. This Titanite lizard must be part chameleon, because it can see a full 360 degrees around it. I tried to show it the beauty of firebombs, but the angle is just a little too sharp, as are the other cliff edges. Let's come back to this one, which brings us to the Lower Undead Burg. We've already cleared out the puppers, but there's unfortunately an unskippable trigger at the end of this street. Despite me making 0 sound whatsoever, the doors fly open, releasing the Hollow Thieves, which means we need to reset back to the bonfire. But once we get back to this point, our ring works as intended, and the Hollow Thieves don't notice us, which means we can take our new +5 longbow out for a spin.
Leg shot.
Man, these thieves really ought to learn how to slice the pie. For those of you that don't know, that's a military tactic where you move in a semicircle around corners to minimize your own risk. It's a whole thing, just look it up. You know what else is a military tactic? Breach and clear. Well, that sucks. My firebombs don't do one-shot damage anymore. That's okay though. I've got another idea. Let's just set up a glowing orb that hurls insults about the Hollow Thief's mother across the street, and now we can safely remove the threat. Easy game for babies. The next part is a bit trickier though. The street is even narrower, and I can now confirm that dogs have a smell range, not just a sight range. But that extra damage we went out of our way to grab was not in vain. That's one dog down. And although this attempt was ruined because of another force trigger event, this means we can now play around with our toys. And while the oral decoy seemed like a solid plan at first, luring out 3 enemies at the same time is a bit too much. I just can't kill them fast enough without them noticing me. But maybe we don't need to. Someone left their little piggies out in the open, huh? Now we just need to slice the pie on these other 2 doorways and we can— oh god damn it! Okay, now we can slice the pie. I forgot that there was 2 patrolling dogs. My, what a nice knife you have. Think I'll take it. And despite me being only a few feet away, the 3rd thief must be asleep standing up. That's another shot to the arteries and another hallway cleared of enemies. Which brings us to the Capra Demon. Or rather, it would, but with my enormous brain, I have a way to kill the Capra Demon without entering the fight. Okay, that's a lie. My brain consists of 2, maybe 3 brain cells at most, but the strategy is still valid. Here's how it works. There are 2 dogs in the Capra Demon's arena, right? And if we walk into that arena, at least one of them will instantly aggro onto me. But if I throw firebombs into that arena from outside, I can hit the Capra Demon, who doesn't seem to react at all to my firebombs, but even if he did, he's a boss, and boss aggro doesn't count. And approximately 30 firebombs later, that's all she wrote. Capra Demon destroyed, depth key acquired, no aggressive doggos to be seen. There's some unaggressive doggos that I can see, but it's only a matter of taking careful aim and one-shotting them before they realize what's going on. After that, it's smooth sailing down towards the depth doorway, and we can now officially say that we've made it to the depths without aggroing any enemies. How wild is that? Even better, we can get back into the Firelink Shrine Aqueduct, opening up the undead female merchant's inventory. And while she's got plenty of items, like these poison throwing knives that we can use for distractions or other creative solutions, the biggest reasons to get excited are that we now have unlimited access to dung pies and alluring skulls. Oh my yes. And with our pocket full of poopy skulls, it's time for the depths. Okay, yeah, no, can someone explain what's going on here? Hello? Thank you. Jesus, Dark Souls, pull yourself together. Now we just need to long range the other Dregling and— the fuck? Okay, fine, sure. I'll wander into the room. Happy now? And with the final Dregling in the stairwell now sporting a very sharp watch, we can start to make our way around the room, sniping all the Dreglings that are within eyesight. There is one outlier though. That Dregling in the far back of the room. Despite the one literal feet away from me at the bottom of the stairs not moving, that one in the back of the room instantly aggroes when you walk in. So we'll have to find a way to handle him before we can move forward. Work smarter, not harder. Do you get it? Because you need intelligence to do magic? Yeah, my humor is wasted on you. And now that there are no more enemies that instantly aggro, we can take our time working our way around the room, clearing out all the remaining Dreglings and mentally preparing to fight the butchers. Oh look, a broken baluster. It's almost as if Dark Souls wants me to take the shot. Oh, right. This game hates you. But there's more than one way to clear a room, and one such way is to start hurling feces at everyone in it. Now, I've never used the poo-poo before, so it took me by surprise to learn that the angle is a bit different. Poop is to fastballs as firebombs are to lobs, if that makes any sense. What am I saying? Of course that doesn't make sense. You're watching a man huck someone else's poo at enemies right now. We left sense behind a long time ago. But sense or nonsense, we move forward. Clear puppo number 1, clear puppo number 2, and with a new throwing angle unlocked, I can continue throwing da poo-poo with abandon. Because despite my actions sounding like those of someone who has gone completely mad, I ask you, would a madman be able to toxic the butchers without them aggroing? Yep, that's right. Dung pies are overpowered. Not only can they be thrown extremely far, but because they don't do any damage on impact, enemies simply don't react to them, which means you can throw as many as you want at your target, then sit back and relax while their health whittles away. Now, you will have to be extra patient when using this particular strategy, because Toxic takes a long time to whittle down an enemy from full health to 0. But it will get the job done in most cases, considering the total damage of a single proc of Toxic can do 4,200 damage. Granted, it'll take 10 minutes to get that high, but still, that's a lot of damage. Also, to all of my one-shot contestants who one-shot the Butcher after she fell off the ledge and took a minuscule amount of falling damage, I was wrong to give you that point. There was absolutely a way to kill her in one shot at full health. Sorry about that, but you'll all have to restart your runs if you want full credit. And with the large ember now acquired, we can almost upgrade our weapons to +10. We just need a way to get large Titanite shards. Oh, and we've also got Laurentius free. That means we now have access to a pyromancy glove. That'll be useful later. Unfortunately though, we've got other problems. While it's completely doable to get past all of the torch dreglings down in the depth corridors, this particular hallway here is going to cause us some issues. The dregling is not a problem, but the oozes up above us definitely are. Walk too close, and they'll aggro, which means we're going to need another way around. Not the end of the world, considering we can take the butcher's trash chute down and just use our Black Knight greatsword to kill the giant rat, but going backwards towards the channeler is a no-go, since the tunnels are too tight and the rat spawns after you round the corner. So the only solution is to head on down the ramp and... fuck. Well, it's not aggro, but it's also not killable. They are weak to fire, but my firebombs don't do quite enough damage to kill them. So instead, what we need to do is go down the wrong side of the ramp and into the basilisk den. Yeah, this is a much better idea. Thankfully, our bow is strong enough that we can one-shot the basilisks, so as long as they don't use any of their 4 eyes to see me, we should be okay. And after getting angry about Dark Souls' idea of walls one more time, I discovered that basilisks also hate being called terrible names. You wouldn't think they understood common tongue, but there you have it. Now you do have to get a bit lucky. The basilisks have their ranged breath attack, so they'll try to curse your floating orb more often than not, but every now and again they'll rush over and try to claw at it, which opens them up for a ranged backstab. Another oral decoy cast around the corner, another distracted basilisk killed from long range, and then the rest of the den is actually pretty easy. The other basilisks all have no idea that you're there so long as you aren't making any noise, and they're all a bit slow on the uptake, so even shooting their friends that are sitting right next to them doesn't set them off. Weirdly easy to pull off. I didn't need to come down here, but being able to say I've gotten the Evil Eye ring without any enemies ever aggroing is a pretty fun brag. Now we just need to get out of here. But remember what I taught you, slice that pie. And continue to slice that pie until everyone at the party has been served. Awesome, that's all the rats dead. Now we can... Oh yeah, the ooze. Alright, well, we gave it our best shot. Time for some new toys. With Laurentius now at Firelink Shrine, we can get our Pyromancy Glove and buy a whole slew of ranged fire attacks, all of which should be more than enough to deal with our ooze problem. We can also upgrade our Pyromancy Glove to plus 15, because of course we can. And with Flame in hand, the hallway that once stopped us from progressing is now a hallway of opportunity. It takes some practice to free aim your fireballs, but if you take your time, you can clear the entire hallway without an issue. And the best part? The oozes have a chance to drop a certain item we need. An item I completely forgot they dropped until just now. Ladies and gentlemen, large Titanite shards. With large Titanite on the table, we can now upgrade our bow and melee weapons to plus 10, which I am very excited about. But before we do that, let's see if I can make it a bit farther down in the depths. So long as we launch an oral decoy at the wall instead of the floor, the rats surrounding the great axe won't be able to destroy it, which means we have enough time to actually clear 4 rats in a single cast. Exciting stuff. Then it's just a matter of recasting it every so often until we've cleared all the rats out of the area, and we can claim another useless prize. Neato. Now most players know that there's a rat that jumps out of this box if you walk past it. But did you know there isn't a rat inside if you break it ahead of time? I didn't, but I'm glad that's the case because it would have been a real pain trying to figure out how to lure it out of the box without triggering its aggro otherwise. But now for another brick wall. The White Rat and Channeler room normally consists of multiple enemies all closing in on your position, but it turns out that they only do that because they hear you splish splashing around in the water on the way here. If you have the Slumbering Dragon Crest ring on, no splish splash, and no splish splash means no aggro. Except from this sumbitch here. He won't aggro from you walking up, but he's too far back and the angle is just too tight for you to hit him with a bow. Spells can't make it far enough, and the Channeler doesn't react to Oral Decoy or Alluring Skulls, which means this particular path is a dead end. It also means the Channeler is going to be alive during the boss fight, so get pumped about that. But good news, the boss fight is, in fact, doable now. Ooze problem solved, and rats around the room also dispatched with minimal effort. But now a new problem. There's a second ooze, and it's out of range? That's weird, the last ooze was in range of my fireballs before it aggroed, but this one isn't. Do the oozes have eyes? Do they really? Oh, right. I have magic. Silly me. Dwindling brain cell count aside, we can now fight the gaping dragon. And while the dragon itself isn't difficult, we do have one little problem. Wander too far into the arena, and the Channeler we were unable to kill will aggro. Thankfully, he only aggroes if you wander too far into the room, so the boss fight is still doable, but we're gonna have to fight in some very uncomfortable positions. And naturally, because the gaping dragon doesn't like being eluded, it becomes a race of our damage versus its ability to vomit all over my equipment. I guess we can call that a tie, yeah? But after double confirming that the Channeler wasn't aggro, that's another boss down, which means we get to head to Blighttown. You know, I kinda wish we did fail now. So, let's discuss the problems we have ahead of ourselves. ahead. First up, we have the Blighttown Trolls. Lots of health, decent eyesight, but weirdly susceptible to toxic of all things. You wouldn't think that was true, considering they're the ones running around with pockets full of dung pies, but Dark Souls is not one to make a whole lot of sense. Second is the platforms. They're random, they're everywhere, and they're full of enemies that seem to be on full alert for anyone that isn't covered in pus and dookie. But don't worry, they're all highly susceptible to a well-placed alluring skull. And if there's one type of death that everyone is familiar with here in Blighttown, it's death by 9.8 meters per second squared. This entire area is a struggle. I can't reach these trolls with my dung pies without them noticing me, so I have to do some truly despicable levels of nonsense to get them out of the way. And by that, I mean I threw an alluring skull, retreated to a safe distance away, then, when they had destroyed the skull and lost interest, I cleared a path with my bow and made a mad dash for the edge, which I promptly jumped off of. But unluckily for me, I survived the fall, and no one seemed to notice me. So now we have to keep going. Just like the trolls, the ghouls down here also have too much health to kill with an arrow, so it's back to using distractions and hateful beacons to lure enemies to their gravitational deaths. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some level of schadenfreude to watching the ghouls die to gravity though. Feels good to know that they feel the pain of every Souls player who has ever entered this town of Blight. Now, we just need to find a nearly invisible blow dart sniper, launch a couple more oral decoys at the ledges above me in order to lure off enemies that are lurking a bit too close to the ladder for comfort, and after a lot of trial and error, and I mean a lot, we've somehow, some way, cleared enough enemies up top to make my way up the ladder. Good God, that was just to get to the frickin' ladder. Do you have any idea how many more ghouls stand between me and the bonfire? Like, at least 7. Well, okay, 5 now, but still. But, after ignoring as many of them as I could and taking the jump shortcut down to the bonfire, at least my resets no longer take me all the way back up to the depths. Which is good, because something tells me we're going to have a lot of resets down here. The fire dogs aren't an issue, so no problem there, and the ghoul waiting for you around the corner can easily be distracted with an alluring skull. I probably should have just backstabbed him with my great axe, but this seemed like more fun. After that, it's a literal shot in the dark at the next blow dart sniper, because it apparently doesn't visually load in from this far away, followed by some more sexy skulls. Gravity's gonna have a high kill count today, I tell you what. In case it wasn't obvious, this place sucks. The amount of times you don't realize you're in an enemy's sightline is ridiculous, with the platforms doubling back and layering over one another repeatedly. It's enough to make your head spin. And you know what the worst part of all of it is? It was all for nothing. Right here, before we really get into the thick of it, there's a short corridor with a ghoul and a troll inside. And despite everything I've tried, the troll simply won't fall off the ledge. I tried for so long to make this work, but realized I was wasting my time after a sudden epiphany struck me like a bag full of bricks. And I'll tell you that epiphany in a bit. But first, I need to unwind after how stressful it was just getting that far into Blighttown's front entrance. Look how tight my calves are. I can barely kick Lautrec to his death. In any case, because I'm pretty sure my epiphany just sealed shut the last remaining doors to any bosses in the run, let's go ahead and explore any and all paths left to us. Don't mind Thomas here. He's just sleepy. Down here in the Valley of Drakes, we've got some experimenting to do. The Drakes don't like the oral decoy, but they rarely, if ever, chase after it, so it's not very useful. But they do enjoy being covered into poo-poo. Wait, no, that's not right. What's the opposite of enjoy? And after waiting an extensive period of time for each Drake to slowly perish, we can eventually make it to the bridge that leads to the red Tearstone Ring. And if we go to the right, we can hop aboard the elevator that takes you to Darkroot Basin again. Now, luckily for us, the Black Knight standing in wait at the entrance to our secret tunnel is looking the wrong way, but while I don't have enough oomph to kill him in a single shot, I do have enough poop to apply Toxic, and therefore make him evacuate all of his orifices at the same time until he dies. Oh gee, thanks Dark Souls. Yeah, I probably won't make much use of that halberd or Grasscrest shield if I'm being honest. Still fun to add them to my collection though. Now, interestingly, our new tools do let us get past the Tight-Eyed Lizard up top. Technically. Because they do, for some reason, respond to Oral Decoy, but they run from it rather than aggro onto it. Now, I'll be real with you. I tried every single trick in the book. I got as good of an angle as I could, tried throwing firebombs at it, tried to toxic it with Dookie, the whole 9 yards. But in the end, I decided it was legal to use the Oral Decoy. Because if you think about it, it's 1, not aggro, and 2, not responding to me, but rather a distraction. Not the cleanest rule loophole, I admit, but I think it makes a sort of sense. Not that it matters though, because once you get up the hill, you instantly fail. These trees can sense you from a huge distance away, which means the second you have any sort of shot, they're already aware of you and aura farming towards you. I tried to throw some firebombs over the hill at them to see if I could kill them before they noticed me, but despite having the best throwing arm on the team, my firebombs don't do enough damage to take out the demonic foliage in one hit. And I don't know if you can throw poo at the correct angle to hit the tree either. That said, I did do a quick test to see if I was wasting my time, and yeah, the trees cannot be toxicked, so that won't work here either. Dead end, full stop. But despite Darkroot being completely sealed shut, there's still a few more places we can try to go. Glad to see fall control works as intended. I did want to see how close to the Hydra I could get, but I couldn't even get close due to the fact that the crystal golems can sense my evil intentions. So Darkroot Garden and Basin are complete dead ends. I also wanted to quickly double check that New Londo was out of the question as well. And yeah, no doubts there. Even if we were able to get past the few ghosts stationed around the area, which you wouldn't considering how long their sense of smell is, we would also have to contend with all of the trap ghosts around the map as well. So New Londo is also a no-fly zone, which leads us back to Blighttown. The back entrance is actually very easy to access, considering we have plenty of dung pies and all of the enemies are expecting you to come from the other direction, so they don't even notice you're there. But the real problem of Blighttown's second half, and the mechanic that put the final nail in the coffin of this run, is the mosquitoes. No matter how I approached this platform, no matter how cautious I was, I inevitably set off a mosquito. And these things are everywhere. Now, normally, I would have tried a few techniques and tested whether oral decoy or alluring skulls work on them, but there's no point. 90% of the time, they lock onto me before I can even see them. And the other 10% of the time, I have no angle to hit them with arrows, firebombs, spells, or otherwise. There was a small part of me that thought I might be able to hardcore parkour my way down into Blighttown without any enemies seeing me rocketing my way down, but unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. And considering the front door of Blighttown leads to just as many mosquitoes, if not more, I'm pretty sure that solidifies the end of the run. Which is a real shame, because I was having a lot of fun puzzle solving the game. I even tried some out-of-the-box thinking, and found out you can hit the red dragon's tail with dung pies. But don't get too excited. While it would be awesome if the dragon could die from toxic, and we could join the Sun Bros to get Lightning Spear for some long-range spell combat, the dragon never once procced toxic, despite me throwing nearly 100 poops at it. In fact, just to be safe, I cheat engined my way above it and threw more poo than any man should ever throw at a dragon to see if I was getting unlucky or if the red dragon was immune to toxic. Safe to say, the answer is the latter. So, with Lightning Spear a no-go, I decided it was time to play in the graveyard. And hoo boy were we in for a bad time. The way the skeletons work is like a trap. If you step over an invisible boundary, they rise up, which means we can just walk around the graveyard testing for trigger boxes. Sounds simple, right? Well, I hope you like loading and reloading the level over and over again, because that's what it takes to find a safe way through the graveyard. Alternatively, you can watch this video and let me tell you the answer. There isn't one. But while there may not be a way to get through the graveyard without triggering the skeletons, there is a way to get past the skeletons without them aggroing. Tony 1 and Tony 2 here always trigger when you get to this point in the graveyard, but if you're standing behind some graves to their right, they can't see you. And after half an hour of messing around with oral decoy and trying to get them to look away or move somewhere else, the answer was, just run past. That's it. Tony triggers, then stands there like an idiot while you just move on forward. This skeleton down here doesn't even activate so long as you don't go for the goodie it's guarding, and the two knuckleheads up there never turn around. So you're good to go. At least until you get to the second half of the graveyard, where two more skeletons pop up. How do you get past those? The exact same way. Just run past them, fall down this weirdly well-placed divot, scurry around the lower wall, and there you go. No skeletons have noticed you, and you can make it through the graveyard unharmed. Did you know? If you use oral decoy, the floating heads actually hate the sound of laughter so much that they'll explode to remove it. And thanks to our good pal Gravity showing up once again, we can make our way down the stairs, cast another decoy to lure out the skeletons hiding around the corner, break it as fast as I can, and scurry towards the bonfire. Now, I wasn't sure if this would actually work, considering there's so many trap skeletons that pop up as you run past, but it does look like it. Well, almost. Turns out that one skeleton I murdered with a soul arrow is forever aggro now. And considering the necromancer that respawns him is all the way down here, it wouldn't be fair to kill the necromancer and then try again. Which means we need a way to kill the skeleton before we get down here. Only one problem with that little number though. In order to permanently kill a skeleton, we need to do holy damage. And the only holy weapon I've been able to reach up to this point is the Astora Straight Sword. A weapon that doesn't do all that much damage and requires Twinkling Titanite to upgrade. A material that I've been unsuccessful in acquiring up to this point since non-skittish crystal lizards have been in short supply. I tested to see if the Astora Straight Sword would be able to one-shot the skeletons with any of its attacks, but it's looking pretty grim. Unless you can actually push a little bit further into the Valley of Drakes, throwing poop like your life depends on it. Because it does. It do. And, after waiting several minutes for the blue beasties to finally kick the bucket, we've acquired a new boost to our build, the red Tearstone Ring. But now for the big question. What does this change? Well, because of our increased damage, we've actually got a way to one-shot the skeletons with holy damage, which means we can kill the one aggro skeleton before the catacombs bonfire, run past all the skeletons leading up to it, and after standing still for a minute to confirm that we aren't being chased, we can officially say we've made it to the first bonfire. And after shooting the necromancer in the face, we are now free to use whatever method of damage we like to kill the skeletons. Around here, anyway. And so begins the new order of operations puzzle we find ourselves in. Kill the necromancers first, then isolate and destroy the skeletons. A simple task, you might think, but this second necromancer has incredible eyes, and so we had to use an alluring skull to distract him before taking him out. Man, I cannot fathom how bad this is going to be. Some of the necromancers are deep past enemy lines. It's going to be hell trying to... Sweet, merciful Gwyn, that can only be one item, and it's one I so desperately need. Okay, Lemon, be cool, be chill, just take your time. Don't think about the fact that if you have to reset at this point, the item will disappear. Why are you thinking about that? I said don't think about that. Give him the stick. No, don't give him the stick. Sorry, all the pressure is getting to me. But if we can reach that item, you'll see why. And after killing the last of the skeletons just standing there, menacingly, I can finally obtain my prize, the Skull Lantern. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This item changes the entire run. No, seriously, this is huge, because if we trade it with Snuggly the Crow, Snuggly will cough up one of my new favorite rings, the Ring of Fog. Behold, the Invisible Man. What do you mean you can't behold him? He's right there. Oh, right. The thing about being invisible is that enemies that have triggers generally rely on a second source of information to make good on that aggro. So for example, we've got this skeleton trap here. Pops up, not a whole lot of places to hide. But because we're invisible, we can just walk a few feet away and, well, yeah. And with that new addition to my arsenal, remaining hidden is the easiest it will ever get. Now it's just a matter of picking off the necromancers around the area so that I can kill their skeletons permanently. Combine our new power with Oral Decoy and Alluring Skulls, and every enemy in this godforsaken catacomb is now on the menu. Don't get me wrong, you're not immune to being discovered. You'll still need to take your time so that you don't accidentally run into a random skeleton hiding around a corner. But this is so much easier than it was before. I should get this ring more often. But with the necromancers slowly but steadily diminishing, the catacombs opens up bit by bit. Which means that I just might be able to kill a few more bosses than I thought I could. I also went to visit Nito because I might as well do as much as I can. Hey bud, sorry it's taking me so long to get here. People keep trying to kill me on sight. Hopefully we'll talk soon, yeah? Now then, let's see if we can manage to get to Pinwheel. With Fall Control, the Ring of Fog, and Slumbering Dragoncrest Ring all active, I'm able to fall down into the Bonewheel Pit without detection. Then, so long as I don't move, I can re-equip the Red Tearstone Ring and dish out cold, hard, arrow-tipped death to any and all bone wheels in range, which in this case happens to be 2. The rest of the bone wheels aren't close enough to see me, so once the 2 at the base of this cliffside are taken care of, it's just a simple jog over to Pinwheel's arena and an even simpler boss fight with Pinwheel himself. It almost feels like he can't find me. I know bosses are supposed to be able to smell you and therefore never lose you, but I don't know. I feel like he never even looked my way. Oh hey, Mask of the Child. Literally the only mask that would have been useful to this run. Nice. Now, I know that the golden fog wall is up at the bottom of these tombs, but out of sheer morbid curiosity, I wanted to know how far down into the tombs I could get. You know, in case I can get the golden fog walls down at some point. And the answer is, all the way. I was able to navigate to the first bonfire, grab a second skull lantern for myself, and with it, slowly push my way through the Tomb of the Giants, killing the few skeledogs and big skeletons that were in my way. The only enemy that gave me any trouble is the skeleton archer that guards the path down to the Silver Serpent Ring. Not sure why his view range is so large. But once I knew his range and found his beady little eyes lying in wait for me, I was able to send a great heavy soul arrow his way without him aggroing. Easy enough. Which means I was able to reach the second bonfire and navigate my way through the rest of the level with ease, much like you can do even without our stealth build. And there it is, 1 golden fog wall reached. I wouldn't have thought it possible, but there you go. You know, seeing that golden doorway fills me with renewed confidence. I bet we could do several really incredible things without ever triggering aggro if we put our mind to it. And I've got a mind to do just that. Starting with the big skeleton pit. With our stealth rings on, they don't aggro when we enter, which means we can systematically, quietly, take them all out. It takes a steady hand and almost all of my great heavy soul arrows, but at the end of the day, it's just a calm day of target practice. And with the last of the skeletons destroyed, we can collect our prize, the large divine ember. I don't ever think I've gotten the large ember before getting the small ember before. I wonder if Andre has anything to say about that. He does not. But hey, at least we can make plus 10 divine weapons now. From plus 5 divine weapons. Okay, I see the problem here. Well, let's see if we can't solve that problem, yeah? And despite my expectations, the Titanite Demon actually doesn't aggro immediately? Strange, I thought he was a smell-based enemy. Ah, there he goes. We can just get a lot closer now is all. Good to know. But we've still got backdoor access, so long as we scare off the Titanite Lizard up ahead, because sadly, despite our new build, the lizard still notices us when we round that corner, which means Oral Decoy is the only way to go. However, good news. The demonic foliage no longer aggroes to our presence, which means we've got a whole slew of new things we can grab. So long as we kill the shrubberies from long range and kill all of the trap shrubs while they're still in the ground, we can collect ourselves a partisan from the snake tree, And after confirming that waking up the stone golems does not, in fact, aggro them if you wander away from them, we've got one more thing I absolutely need to grab. Here, hold this. I'll need to speak to your manager in a minute. Let me just take out all the shrubs around the area real quick, as well as these 2 stone golems that are just lounging about the place, and there we go. Subjectively, the best armor in the game acquired. Run is now a success. We can all go home. Oh, alright, just a few more boss kills. Yank my arm, why don't ya? And with the Moonlight Butterfly dead, thus the regular-sized Divine Ember acquired. But something tells me this forest has a bit more to offer, which means it's off to the Forest Covenant's neck of the woods. Unsurprisingly, hugging the left side of the area lets you avoid every single enemy here. Like, all of them. I was expecting to have to kill at least one from a distance, but no such need, which means it's a straight shot to another boss, and another milestone marked off our list. We send Sif to the Great Farm in the valley. Yes, the farm is real, she's perfectly fine. And acquire a ring that greatly improves backstab damage. Not sure if we'll ever need it, but stealth ring is stealthy, so, you know, whatever. Speaking of stealthy, I can now sneak past the blue golems in the basin. Maybe this means we can attack the Hydra? Ah, no such luck. It can still smell me, so there's no way to... The same is still true of the ghosts at New Londo. Being ethereal themselves, they can see ethereal lemon just fine. So no progress there either. However, much to my dismay, the same is not true for Blighttown. Turns out the mosquitoes are sight reliant, which means we are back to creeping around in the muck, taking free aim shots at bugs that have incredibly small hitboxes. I don't know why I did that. I probably could have dropped down a level or 2 and still been hidden. Now this blow dart sniper does notice you if you just drop down, which is a pain, but if you smash the pottery like the caveman that you are, you can drop down farther away from the sniper, just enough to avoid his interest. After that, you just keep falling out of his line of sight, then pop back into his line of sight to show him who the better sniper is. In fact, let's make sure his entire family knows. Just headshot after headshot. Leave no blow dart sniper unscathed. And you know what? Let's make sure the household pets know too. Why the hell not? And as a final touch, let's rob them blind. Well, grave rob them blind. Wouldn't want to get the terminology wrong. There is a chaos bug standing guard over the path to the elevator that I can't seem to reach, but if you dodge onto this little offshoot here, you're good to go. We wish the elevator dog well in its never-ending endeavors, grab the swamp bonfire with relative ease, and because no one can see me, just treat the rest of the swamp like normal. And after passing the praying egg boys, who aren't aggressive in any way, we can now add Quelaag to our somehow still growing list of bosses killed without aggroing an enemy. What is happening right now? Did you think that we'd reach not 1, but 2 Bells of Awakening playing like this? Did anyone? I know I didn't. But hey, add becoming a Chaos Servant to the list of accomplishments. Oh, and don't forget to make a quick visit to the Demon Ruins. Wouldn't want Ceaseless to get lonely now, would we? Alright, hold up. Now I gotta know. There's 2 embers down here before the next golden fog wall. Can you get both of those as well? It would be fun to add to my collection of useless weapon upgrade paths. Well, that depends. These cave worms, much like all the other annoying enemies in the game, spawn in when you cross a trigger area, so there's no way to avoid them appearing. But considering they have very clearly defined aggro states, where they actively try to attack you if you get too close, one could argue that they aren't aggroed unless they physically attack you. Kinda up to interpretation, but it's the same rules that we've been using for the other enemies, so I'm counting it. And since you can easily one-shot all of the statue demons around the area before they notice you, that means we can creep our way down the steps, huck a few poops at the Taurus demon standing in our way until it toxics, wait a few minutes for the toxic to do its thing, then move a few more feet, and do it all over again.
Riveting gameplay!
Now for the tricky part. This hallway consists of 5 hidden cave worms. Easily avoided if you know what you're doing, but a bit tricky if not. We can use dung pies or magic to get rid of them, so no worries there, but you will fail and have to reset if you don't space yourself properly at the second trigger. They're pretty tightly arranged, so your best bet is to walk along the left side wall to avoid getting pinched. Do that, and you'll trigger them without any of them attacking. And after they're dead, it's smooth sailing to the large flame ember. That's +5 to +10 fire weapons unlocked. And don't worry, the first flame ember is also unlockable, since we can clear a path to the bonesmith extremely easily. I already did it in a previous excursion, but just forgot to mention it. Silly me. So that's the +0 to +5 fire weapons unlocked as well. Again, not useful for our particular run, but neat to think that we have those embers available to us. But with another golden fog wall bumped into, we have no other choice than to start working our way through Sen's fortress. And it's right here where everything falls apart. Clearing out the snake people? No issue whatsoever. The boulder snake conundrum? Not an issue. He arrives at the door because he's running from the boulder, but never saw me or aggroed. Proven by the fact that after he gets hit with that first rock, he just starts casually making his way up the hill as if nothing is wrong. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. The snake that waits for you in that one trapped hallway? Child's play. Just use oral decoy to lure it away from you, then give it a blast of the old great heavy soul arrow. On and on it goes. see snake people, blast snake people from just outside their range, repeat ad nauseum. We can even move the boulder contraption to unlock Big Hat Logan. Master key for the win yet again. And despite running out of great heavy soul arrows towards the top of Sen's Fortress, alluring skulls and a heavy arrowhead shot can get the same job done when it comes to the Snake Sorceress. But then, disaster. Some of you probably already knew this was coming, but it was worth confirming anyway. Once you step out of this fog wall here, the firebomb giant up at the top will immediately notice you, lock in, and start hucking giant firebombs at you from on high. And there is no way to avoid this. As demonstrated by Illusory Wall, this entire event is more or less a scripted trigger. While the current version of the giant only throws firebombs in specific areas, older patches of the game prove that it can smell you, as it used to throw firebombs at you directly. And if the giant can smell us from this far away, there's no way in hell we can ever hide from him. Which means Sen's Fortress is impossible, and the run is officially over. But because I was having so much fun, I decided to see exactly how far we could push this build. For science, you understand. And I was able to unlock some pretty incredible milestones. For one, I was able to unlock Ferris's bow, which has the longest range in the game. It somehow does less damage than my longbow, sadly, but 15 extra meters is still a good time. Also, by freeing Logan from Sen's Fortress, we were able to unlock a litany of new damaging spells. Most importantly, Soul Spear. And if you force him off the ledge like his apprentice, we can unlock one of the best spell tools in the... Oh wait, no that's not right. You only unlock Logan's staff if you kill him in the Duke's Archives. Whoops. But good news! Soul Spear plus Red Tearstone Ring means we can kill that Black Knight at the Undead Asylum. I got the doll! While I was new boot goofing, I realized I could have had fire and poison arrows forever ago, which is a bit of a misplay on my part. And I also remembered that Quaylana appears when you kill Quaylag and have an upgraded Pyroflame, which means we can upgrade our Pyroflame even further to Ascended +5 and get a whole slew of new Pyromancy spells if you want them for some reason. And since we've already ruined our boots, we might as well clear out the leeches leading to the Great Hollow and give that a quick run through, which is actually a lot easier considering we have fall control. Unsurprisingly, the basilisks are no threat to us, and after getting the last of them out of the way, we can push even further downward. But rather than kill a bunch of mushroom babies, which is both dangerous and difficult, we can cast fall control again and just fall with style to the bottom of the tree. Now there is one big mushroom guarding the door, and he's too beefy to kill with our current setup, but he doesn't like Oral Decoy very much. And with him distracted, we can push on forward and head out into Ash Lake, which is surprisingly calm this time of year. Look, even the Hydra just ignores us. Surprising. I would have thought that its sense of smell would be too big for us to avoid it. But with no aggro happening, we can go meet up with Puff the Great Stoned Dragon, join his covenant for shits and giggles, and trade in 80 scales to get to a +3 rank, unlocking the Dragon Head and Torso Stones. But don't get too excited just yet. We can improve our damage even higher. Because if we use Soul Spear to clear the Blighttown Parasite, we can grab the overpowered Power Within, which means I finally have enough damage to kill those giant mushrooms and... Oh wait, I can just throw poop. Well, I feel stupid now. All that powering up for more damage just to be outdone by some fecal matter. Ah well, live and learn I suppose. And with the mushrooms fully fertilized, we can acquire yet another upgrade item, the Enchanted Ember. But why stop there? Let's use Dung Pies to clear out the Taurus demons down in the Demon Ruins, who are all very easy to toxic if you angle it correctly with your bow. And with the right armor on, you can grab the last reachable ember of the run, the Chaos Flame Ember. You know, with this wild of a build, maybe we can do something with our power. If we sneak up on the Titanite demon outside of Andre, equip RTSR, Bellowing Dragon Crest, use a +3 Dragon Roar, and cast Soul Spear, it's not quite enough damage. Damn, so close. Something weird I noticed though. Shooting at it from far away makes it attack a random direction, then return to its starting position. It doesn't actually know where we are. Technically, this is aggro, so we won't kill it or count it, but I just thought it was interesting that some enemies can flail around hoping to hit you even when they don't know what's attacking them. I also don't think the Dragon Roar has any sort of audio cue for enemies. I shouted it at distances that should have gotten something's attention, but never saw a reaction. Just Dark Souls being Dark Souls, I guess. As a last-ditch effort to unlock some more content, I tried to sneak up on the Hydra again, but no such luck. In fact, even with feather arrows and Ferris's black bow, you still can't hit it. Or rather, you can, but it doesn't take any damage and instantly aggroes onto you. So despite all of our build upgrades, it's just not possible. And with no other recourse, that's the end of the run. We are cursed to live out our silent, invisible existence in the first half of the game, collecting humanity from the recently deceased like the specter that we are. At least we get waifu hugs until the end of our days. That's something at least. And there you have it. Dark Souls 1's stealth mode pushed to its absolute limits. As I mentioned earlier, if you think you have a way that can push this run even further without glitches, then prove me wrong. Record your attempt, send me a DM on Discord, and show me what you've got. I'm feeling pretty confident that I've gotten this run as far as it can go, but I'm no stranger to the internet. Someone will find something. A big shout out to Blue Thunder Souls again for the idea for this video. If I'm being honest, this was by far one of my favorite runs in Dark Souls. Every room felt like a puzzle box, waiting to be solved. It was so fun, in fact, that I'm already considering how to do it in the other Souls games. But those are videos for another time. Thanks for watching. I hope you had as good a time listening to me ramble as I did playing this run. If you enjoyed your time here, consider subscribing, liking the video, or doing whatever the hell else YouTube pretends matters these days, and hopefully that'll make it so that when I do get around to sneaking my way through another Souls game, you'll actually get notified. But until then, that's all I've got. Take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.